Okay, so let's jump right in. If you're a reader, and I'm guessing you are, you've totally done this before. You're reading along and a sentence just stops you cold. It feels important, like a key. You highlight it, but then what? What actually happens next? Well, today, we're diving into a method that's all about turning those powerful words into a living, breathing experience, not just another forgotten highlight on a page. Take a sentence like this one. The human soul is shaped and molded through a continuous series of lived experiences. Just let that sit with you for a second. It's a big idea, right? This is what's called a declarative statement. It's presenting an idea as a fact. And it's exactly this kind of sentence we're going to learn how to really engage with. And that really gets to the heart of the matter. When we find one of these nuggets of gold, what's our next move? Do we just file it away, tuck it in our brain as something to believe in? The whole idea we're exploring today is that when we do that, we turn a living teaching into a static doctrine, and we miss out on a much, much bigger opportunity. So here's the game plan. First, we're going to unpack that difference between wisdom and doctrine. Then I'll introduce you to a specific method for engagement. We'll see why learning it with images first is kind of the secret sauce before we pivot to text. Then we'll walk through the whole thing in action and wrap up by talking about how this makes words truly come alive. All right, section 1, wisdom or doctrine. You know, the books we love are just filled with these powerful declarative statements, these little nuggets of gold. But the real danger is treating them like museum pieces, things to be admired and agreed with, but never actually touched or worked with. And check out this contrast. It's pretty stark. On one side, you have a living teaching. It needs engagement to thrive. It's alive. It actually works on you. But on the other side, that same idea, treated as doctrine, just becomes inert. It's just an interesting idea that sits there. Believing it is fine, but it doesn't really change anything. And just to be super clear, the kind of sentence we're zeroing in on is a declarative statement. It's not asking a question, it's not giving a command, it's just stating something, plain and simple, like the sky is blue. These are the sentences that come across as truth, and that this method is designed to help us unpack. So that leads us right into our next section, a method for engagement. If the goal is to stop these nuggets of gold from turning into dusty old doctrines, what do we actually do? Well, we need a game plan, a structured way to interact with them. And that, my friends, is where text-based PLS comes in. And at its heart, the PLS method is built on these 3 deceptively simple prompts. That's it. Step 1, what do I see? Step 2, what do I know? And step 3, tell a story. This little framework is the engine that's going to help us go so much deeper with what we read. But here's a really interesting twist. The method doesn't start with text at all. The real training ground is images. And you might be asking, why? Well, it's because learning to separate what you actually see from what you think you know is way easier with a picture than with abstract words. You know, the source material is really emphatic about this. Mastering that distinction between see and know is step 1. It says trying to do this with text right off the bat would, and I'm quoting here, open a major can of worms. So we start with pictures to build that muscle first. Let's actually give it a shot. Look at this photo. If I ask you, what do you see? I'm not asking for your interpretation. I'm not asking for the backstory you're inventing in your head. I'm just asking for the raw visual data. What is literally there? And boom, this lays it out perfectly. You see 2 people. You might infer or know that they're a mother and daughter. You see a plaid shirt. You might guess from the style that it's the 1940s. You see a car with an Ohio license plate, and your brain immediately jumps to family trip. See is observation, know is the story we add on top. Okay, so once you've really got that distinction down with images, then you're ready for the next section, pivoting to text. Now we can take that skill and apply it to the abstract world of language. But it's not always a perfectly clean transition. Yeah, the source even admits that this pivot can feel a little wobbly. I mean, asking what do you see when you're looking at a sentence, it doesn't feel quite as intuitive as asking it about a photograph, right? So how do we make these prompts really work for text? The method has a really smart solution for this. It's called a similar form. The whole idea is to find a slightly different way of asking the core question, one that really clicks for you when you're reading, and then you just mentally link it back to the original prompt.
So for example, instead of what do you see, maybe asking yourself what is explicitly stated feels more precise. Or maybe it's just what does the line say? It's all about finding the version of the question that keeps you in that purely observational see mode.
And that finally brings us to the payoff. We have laid all the groundwork, and now it's time to put it all together. Let's see this entire method in action, and we're going to apply it to that big declarative statement we started with. Here it is again. But this time, we're not just going to read it and nod our heads. Nope. This time, we are going to engage with it using our full 3-step process. Okay, step 1. What do we see? Or let's use our similar form. What is explicitly stated? Well, the sentence explicitly says the soul is often regarded as indivisible and eternal. It explicitly says that, in fact, it is shaped and molded. And it explicitly states this shaping happens through lived experiences. See? No interpretation yet, just the cold, hard facts of the sentence. Now we move to step 2. What do we know? Based on what's explicitly stated, what can we start to infer? Well, for one, the soul is not fixed. It suggests that our experiences are the things that actually transform it. This gives the whole idea this cool DIY flavor, right? It implies we have an active role here. The tone feels less like a belief you have to accept and more like an instruction. And then, finally, step 3, tell a story. And wow, this is where it all comes together. Just look at this incredible response from the source's example. That abstract idea of a shapeable soul is transformed into a powerful personal metaphor, a workbench. The idea is no longer something out there. It's a felt reality right here. And this leads us beautifully into our final thought, making words come alive. The whole point of this practice, the reason it matters, is to move us from being passive consumers of ideas to being active and even transformed by them. So here it is, the big takeaway. These powerful declarative sentences, they're not just ideas to be debated or agreed with. They are, as the source so brilliantly puts it, pressure points. They're meant to be engaged with, to be allowed to press on our own understanding of the world, to see what happens. So I'll leave you with this question. The next time a sentence really stops you in your tracks, are you going to let it become just another inert piece of doctrine that you file away? Or are you going to treat it as an invitation, as a living thing, as an unfinished workbench, still open and waiting to be shaped?